In Ocean Springs, Mississippi, a peaceful protest staged on Saturday amid the ongoing death investigation of Nolan Wells. Wells was on a 4th of July boat trip to Horn Island with friends, but didn't make it back home.
6 weeks of online investigation has produced exactly 3 names for the court system. None of them was on that boat. 3 separate prosecutions now exist over threats. One aimed at a judge, one at a witness, one at local officials, per PBS NewsHour and CNN. Edward James Porter of Illinois faces federal charges over an alleged threatening call, per NBC News. Charged. Not convicted, but charged. So the darkest thing this search has surfaced so far is not a secret about Horn Island. It is what the search itself did to people who had nothing to do with it. That is uncomfortable, and it is on the record. Here is the list of what is actually confirmed in this case. It is shorter than the internet thinks, and every line on it has a source. Start with the person at the center. Nolan Wells was 18 years old. According to the timeline compiled by CNN and WWL, he disappeared during a July 4th boat trip to Horn Island, Mississippi. 2 days after that, on the 6th, he was found. That is the first confirmed fact. A young man went out on the water and did not come back. Now the timing, because timing is where this case gets precise. Departure sits at about 4:31 on the state's own position data, per CBS News. That is a machine record, not a memory. 4:31 p.m. Then there is the sighting report. The United Cajun Navy, a volunteer group, not a law enforcement agency, produced its own reconstruction. That document, per TMZ, puts Nolan's final confirmed sighting somewhere between 3:23 and 4:27 that afternoon. The document is not an official finding, but it is the last verified sighting anyone has. Put those 2 numbers next to each other. The sighting window is 3:23 to 4:27. That is exactly 64 minutes. The boat left at 4:31. So the gap between the last verified sighting and the boat's departure is not one number. It is a range. If the sighting happened at 3:23, the gap is 68 minutes. If it happened at 4:27, the gap is 4 minutes. The official record does not tell you which one is real. That range, 4 minutes to 68 minutes, is the confirmed truth. Anything tighter than that is speculation. Now the investigation itself. As CNN, NPR, and NOLA.com each reported, no one has been charged in connection with Nolan Wells' death. The file is still open at county level and federal level both, per the same outlets. Sheriff John Ledbetter told WWL that his office has interviewed more than 60 witnesses. 60. Federal ground is why the FBI is on the digital side. That is a jurisdictional fact, not a clue. The other 3 from that day have each spoken to investigators. The sheriff said that. They are witnesses. They are not named suspects. They have not been charged. Then there is the medical record. According to WellBT, the state's own autopsy was finished by July 31st. Its results have not been made public, and they are going to a grand jury. So the state's examiners have done their work, but the finding is sealed from us. In parallel, the family commissioned an independent examination. Per ABC News and CNN, that review came back with one phrase: undetermined pending investigation. Let us be precise about what that phrase does and does not say. It does not say no crime. It does not say hidden. It says the examiners could not establish a cause, yet. The word pending is doing real work there. It means the question stays open. Finally, the public record includes warnings from officials. Officials used Newsweek to ask that nobody settle this ahead of the work. Their stated concern was interference. Theories online cost the file time. What people were sharing as toxicology was not real, the state said via WLBT. So the official record includes a warning: do not trust everything you see. That is the confirmed list. 1 victim, 2 days, a 64-minute sighting window, a 4 to 68-minute gap, more than 60 witnesses, no charges, 1 state autopsy sealed, 1 independent autopsy undetermined, and a warning from officials that speculation is getting in the way. Now here is the problem. That list does not match the story most people have already decided to tell, and the gap between the record and the narrative is where the threats started. The state went public about a counterfeit lab document doing the rounds. Per WellBT, fraudulent, not preliminary, not incomplete, He is calling that document a fake. The state's own autopsy was completed by July the 31st, per WWL, but the results have not been released. They are going to a grand jury. So when an official-looking tox result appears in your feed, we already know the state isn't the source. The state has not put its answer out. That silence is doing real work. CNN reported in early August that a month after Nolan's death, a lack of clear answers was fueling speculation, distrust, and threats. Not just speculation, threats. The two grew out of a little leak. Mississippi officials saw it coming from a distance. Per Newsweek, they urged the public seek a voice of actual action and warned that social media speculation could end the case. They did not ban the questions. They simply told us to slow the system first. A question and a threat are different documents. And then the court itself, in the middle of this, filed its filings. There are 3 people named in the charges connected to this case. The charges aren't about Nolan Wells. CNN and PBS NewsHour reported them. Threats aimed at a judge, a witness, and local officials. 3 people in other paper are about what happened after the case became the internet, not what happened on the water. One of the names is public. Edward James Porter of Illinois, per NBC, CNN, and Tech Times, faces federal charges over threats made in a call and threatened the witnesses and their family members. His name is attached not to the boat, but to the aftermath. Now listen again. The reporting about the 3 charges also says this: none of the 3 appears to have any connection to Nolan Wells, to his family, or to the group that was on the boat. So, while the internet was busy naming a suspect, the courts have returned with a different kind of name, the accused, not for that thing of death, but for the threats. Coverage reported this fact clearly. Those 3 top people in charges are separate from the unfairness. They are the most precise names the online hunt produced, and they are legal names. No need. Single human being produced. And the boat? The friend group is still as this. A lawyer speaks as the targeted, the actual, another. Turn around. The potential victim of the threat, per the friends, are the same 3 friends themselves. TheGrio and ABC, the friends received death threats and harassment. They are the ones providing the track out of the memorabilia. 2 are not accused, and they are not suspects. They are witnesses. Yet the acts of violence have been confirmed to what became a circle. The FBI is not taking those threats lightly. Threats sent to the young men from that trip are being examined federally, per LiveNOW from Fox. So the person I don't occurrence and the outage. 3 investigations, and have been charged with threats. No one charged with the dead. The federal report in Illinois is also a charge about a call, not about a body. Let us put that in a single frame. A filled space during concern, GIS. Their last confirmed sighting, 323 to 427, was reported by the Raider in its own reporting, labeled as a volunteer group's document, not an official finding, per the Messenger 2023. So the scattered final timeline, the 64-minute window that seems so solid, is not a courtroom. Injustice. It is a snapshot from a volunteer. That doesn't make it wrong, but it means it wasn't created by the system. A printed chain of secret trust. Nothing else has been tested. In the meantime, the triad of charges is a clue to what is not. No one treats a crime, and no one has been accused. Whatever happened to Nolan on the water is still open. The charge in the district is not for the death. The charges in the district are for what happened after. The death tool, the silenced tool, the word. That this is where our record is leaving proof to Tilms, because the people who added the case in the comments are not many people official response as a whole. As a result, one phone call from Illinois, a line of threats to the witnesses and family, and the rest are not on the open record. The next step is the depot of that call. The alleged call, the connection. Its file. What is real is going to be revealed, but each sending one in. A blockade. The domestic line is still. The state and the family, both searching for a cause of death. Neither, apparently, from the feed. Next, what remains have to go back into the record, and the source of the second threat begins to appear. But before the source of that second threat comes into view, you have to slow down. This case is actually 2 cases, and the internet has been scrolling them as one. The first case is Nolan Wells. He was 18. He disappeared during a July 4th boat trip to Horn Island, Mississippi, and his body was recovered on July 6th, according to CNN and WWL. There is no accused person in this death. The Jackson County Sheriff's Department and the FBI are still investigating, per NOLA.com and NPR. The second case is not about the water. It is about what happened after the water. Charges over threats now exist in 3 separate matters: a judge, a witness, local officials, per PBS NewsHour and CNN. One of them, Edward James Porter of Illinois, faces federal charges over an alleged call threatening witnesses and their family members, according to NBC News. Those 2 cases share a name and a boat. That is almost all they share. Reported coverage says none of the 3 charged people appears to have any connection to Nolan Wells, his family, or the group that was on the boat. The online search has produced 3 names in front of a court. All 3 are there for threats, not for the death. So how did the 2 get mixed? It started with a stack of documents that look like they belong together. A volunteer group, the United Cajun Navy, placed Nolan's last independently verified sighting between 3:23 and 4:27 in the afternoon. That report, per TMZ, is a volunteer group's document, and volunteer documents are not official findings. Another document, the family's independent autopsy. Per ABC News and CNN, it returned a cause and manner of death of undetermined pending investigation. Another document, the official state autopsy, completed by July 31st, its results not made public, and now going to a grand jury, per Well BT. And then there is a document that was never a document at all. A purported toxicology report circulating on social media is fraudulent, according to Mississippi Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tyndall, per WLBT. 3 real documents, 1 fake one, and 3 different weights. A volunteer's timeline is not a court's timeline. A private autopsy is not a state autopsy. A charge is not a conviction. But on a phone screen, one scroll after another, they all look equal. That is how a 64-minute window becomes the timeline, how undetermined becomes hidden, and how charged becomes guilty. The mix gets even harder to untangle when the word threats is doing the work. The Bureau has taken up what has been sent to them, per LiveNOW from Fox. Those threats are real enough that 3 people now face charges. The state's public line, through Newsweek, was that early certainty costs the work something. A question is not a threat, a theory is not a threat, asking what happened is not a crime. The law treats those as different acts, and this case is a record of how quickly they can be confused. Look at who is actually in court. Edward James Porter faces a charge about an alleged phone call. An allegation is a starting point, not an ending. The 3 friends who were on the boat, they are not charged. They are not named suspects. The people who went out that day report ongoing harassment, per ABC News. One friend's attorney has sent a cease and desist letter, according to WWL and ABC News. None of that makes the friends the villains of this story. It makes them the people who were there. The real lesson is in the reading. When a post says new detail, ask who produced the detail. If it came from the United Cajun Navy, it is a volunteer report, not an official finding, per TMZ. If it came from Attorney J. Tyler Cox, it is a warning about defamation and potential lawsuits, per 92Q and Black America Web. If it came from the FBI, it is an investigation. If it came from a grand jury, you cannot read it at all. And that last one is exactly where this case is sitting. The state autopsy exists. It was completed. Its results have not been made public. It is going to a grand jury, per Welp T. So the next document in this story is the one nobody is allowed to see, and the confusion will not end until someone in that room decides what the record actually says. Strip the confirmed facts out of this case, and what's left is a much shorter story. You can hold the verified record in one hand. Everything else is speculation wearing a bookmark. Here is the confirmed timeline. Nolan Wells was 18. On July 4, 2026, he disappeared during a boat trip to Horn Island, Mississippi, and his body was recovered on July 6th, per CNN and WWL. CBS News holds the state's position log. It marks the boat gone by roughly 4:31 a.m. The United Cajun Navy, a volunteer organization, not an official finding, per TMZ, places his last independently verified sighting between 3:23 and 4:27. That's the whole verified day. A sighting inside a 64-minute window, a boat leaving the island, and a body found 2 days later. In between, the record goes silent. Everything else is investigation. All 3 companions have been interviewed. 60 witnesses. The death itself still carries no charge against anyone. The case remains open under the Jackson County Sheriff's Department and the FBI. Now the autopsies. It was done by 31 July and published nowhere, per WWL, the privately funded report named neither cause nor manner, per CNN and ABC News. 2 examinations, 2 documents, and neither one answers the only question that matters. Undetermined does not mean exonerated. It does not mean hidden. It means the examiners could not establish a cause, and they left the question open. The threats are part of the record too. Those who were there are now themselves threatened, and the FBI is looking, per LiveNOW from Fox. Since this spread, threats have followed them, per TheGrio and WWL. A written legal demand has gone out on behalf of one of them, per ABC News and WWL. Charges over threats now exist in 3 separate matters: a judge, a witness, local officials, per PBS NewsHour and CNN. But none of the 3 charged appears to have any connection to Nolan Wells, his family, or the group on the boat, per reported coverage. And the warnings are on the record. Officials asked, via Newsweek, that people leave the conclusions alone for now. A fabricated document spread until an official had to name it as fake, per WellBT. Attorney J. Tyler Cox has warned people he believes have defamed his clients, and he has discussed potential lawsuits, per 92Q and Black America Web. A month after the death, the lack of clear answers had already fueled speculation, distrust, and threats, per CNN. So what does the confirmed set alone imply? It implies a case with a broken timeline. It implies 2 autopsies that don't agree on anything except uncertainty. It implies 3 friends who are witnesses, not suspects, and who have been threatened for it. It implies that the official answer is still sealed inside a grand jury process. And it implies that the distance between what we know and what we don't is vast. Now look at what is not in the confirmed set. There is no confirmed cause of death. No confirmed explanation for the hours between the last sighting and the boat's departure. No confirmed statement from the 3 friends about what happened that afternoon. No confirmed toxicology report. The confirmed set is a collection of absences. And an absence is not a clue. It is not a cover-up. It is simply where the record stops. But here's the turn. If the confirmed set is this thin, then the thick online story had to come from somewhere else. Not from the record. Not from the autopsies. Not from the sheriff. It came from the way people filled the empty space between the facts. And that is a story in itself. So before we walk into the grand jury room, ask yourself, how did a case with so few confirmed details become a story with so many? The answer explains everything about what happens next. Here is the strangest number in this whole case. 3 people have been charged for threats. 0 people have been charged for the death. The threats drew charges per CNN and PBS NewsHour. The death itself has not, per CNN and NPR. That gap is not an accident. It reflects an investigation that is still open. The Jackson County Sheriff's Department and the FBI still have the case, per NOLA.com. So what are the questions that remain? Let us lay them out, one at a time. Each one is a place where the record stops. First, what happened in the minutes before the boat left? The volunteer group's report, not an official finding per TMZ, fixes the last verified sighting of Nolan to a window, 3:23 to 4:27 that afternoon. Per CBS News, the state's own marine data has the vessel away at about 4:31. At the closest, that is 4 minutes between the last verified sighting and the boat pulling away. 4 minutes. The record does not say what happened in them. Second, what did the sheriff's office learn? Per Real Talks, Sheriff John Ledbetter's office has spoken with more than 60 witnesses. Federal ownership of the island is what put the Bureau on the digital side. The 3 friends on the boat have all given interviews. 60 witnesses. We do not know what they said. Their accounts sit in the record, and the record is not sharing them. Third, what is in the state autopsy? Per Ferju, The state's own examination finished on July 31st, and its findings have not been released. They are going to a grand jury. The grand jury will see what the examiners found. We have not seen it. Per ABC News and CNN, the family's own autopsy concluded with a phrase that closes nothing: undetermined pending investigation. 2 autopsies, one unreleased, one unfinished. Neither has closed the question. Fourth, why the threats? Per LiveNOW from Fox, the FBI is looking into threats aimed at the people who were with Nolan and at the officials on the case. They say being present that day has cost them their safety, per ABC News. CNN and PBS NewsHour report 3 people now face federal charges over threats against a judge, a witness, and local officials, and reported coverage finds no link between any of the 3 and Nolan, his family, or the people on the boat. People are being charged for threats in a case where no one has been charged for the death. Sit with that. The state, via Newsweek, asked people not to reach a verdict ahead of the evidence. The state called a widely shared toxicology document fraudulent. Per WLBT, the warnings are on the record, the answers are not. So here is where we land. Nolan Wells was 18 years old. He went to Horn Island on the 4th of July. His body was recovered on the 6th, per CNN and WWL. And in the weeks since, a storm has gathered around his name. A storm of theories, of threats, of subpoenas, of reports that have not been released. But the center of it is still a person, a kid who did not come home. His mother Christine is still waiting. A grand jury has not spoken. The next chapter will not be written online. It will be written in a grand jury room, where the state autopsy sits, waiting. The death has no defendant attached to it. The case remains under investigation, and until the grand jury decides, the only thing we can do is keep watching, keep reading the record, and keep Nolan's name attached to the truth, not to the noise, because that is what this case owes him, the truth. And we are not done looking for it.